What's your tease but a scratch moment? I got hit by a car my freshman year of high school. I went flying, lost consciousness for a split second when I hit the ground. Thank God for helmet. When I came to, people were all around me asking if I was okay and what happened, etc. I was like, oh yay, I'm good. I'm gonna just get back on my bike and go now. But didn't really move. Then people started asking me to call an ambulance and my mom, etc. I was like, why? I'm good. I even told my mom on the phone I was still gonna bike home, but as I was saying that, the people around me had started to move one of my legs and I watched as my foot proceeded to not move. I had broken both bones in my leg completely in half and part of ankle. Just pure adrenaline and shock. I also vividly remember thinking how this is what it feels like to get hit by a car. Also the leg wasn't setting right, probably from movement, and the doctor decided to put me on laughing gas as he tried to crack my bones back into place. Was in a stupor laughing as I felt my bones grind. I am a bartender in a nightclub. One night while working I was pouring a drink while I reached back with my other hand to open a fridge. And that's when I heard a pop and got a huge pain in my back shoulder area. The pain was pretty bad, but I was sure it was a pulled muscle and there wouldn't be much point in seeing a doctor other than getting meds. So I waited, fought through the pain which was so bad at times it was making it hard to breath. That was a Friday. I called off Saturday and had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off before I went back to work Wednesday. Once I biked into work. In all I waited 9 days total before finally deciding to go to the ER. I had a collapsed lung, called a spontaneous pneumothorax. 20 minutes after getting to the ER I was put into emergency surgery. I was essentially breathing with only one lung, and any major impact on my chest would have collapsed the other and probably killed me. Happened to me when I was in school just 3 months ago. I suddenly started not being able to breathe, but I was like, I am sure it's nothing. When I got home I actually slept for 3 hours but woke up from the pain. Me and my family thought it was corona, so we went to a hospital. I was quite shocked to learn I had a collapsed lung. But the worst part wasn't the lung, it was the operation and the aftermath. Having a tube inside you for a week hurts like hell. Haven slept for 5 days during my stay there. Yeah, you're actually lucky yours was easy to fix. They tried the pigtail tube on me twice. I went in, they put a tube into my chest with a valve to let the air out. Sent me home for 5 days. Then they took it out. Sent me home and told me to take it easy. Next morning I recollapsed. So I go back and they do the same thing. Put a hose called a pigtail into my chest and wait for it to vent out the built up air so my lung can reopen. Only this time another 2 days later I was able to hold my breath and hear it coming right out the tube on my side. So had to go in for endoscopic surgery. They went in with a camera and took out the affected area of lung. Think an inch by 3 inch patch taken out and stapled together. Then they scraped the outer lung and inner chest, so that they healed together with scar tissue, like gluing them together to prevent it from happening again. Then the fun part, they put an even bigger tube into your side that they keep on suction for a week so the bad lung stays open fully to heal. That tube was the thickness of magic marker. Easy. One of the worst pains in my life was waking up from surgery to find out I don't react to fentanyl. Having them try a double dose, before realizing it wasn't working and making me wait 4 hours to clear it before giving me something else. So I spent like 1-2 hours post waking up from surgery feeling absolutely everything. A couple weeks ago, I stepped on an anthill and got a bunch of ant bites on my ankles. 3-4 days later, the itching was unbearable. I wasn't sleeping, my legs were swollen, and no amount of Benadryl or antihistamine cream was helping the itching. I finally went to a clinic to get a shot or whatever, because I clearly having some sort of allergic reaction. It was a staph infection that had spread from my ankles up to my knees. I would have died if this 1920 instead of 2020. I was on antibiotics for 10 days, and now several weeks later, the dead skin from the infection is still flaking off. TLDR. Scratched and bites with unclean hands and gave myself a staph infection. Ignored it for several days because it was just some bug bites. My little sister fell down about 15 steps at our grandma's house when she was a toddler. She got up, giggled and went to go eat some snacks. This other time, still a toddler, she was supposed to be napping. We were in the living room and heard a huge thud. We ran to the room thinking she'd fell out of the bed. Nope, she somehow managed to pull the TV down. This was the early 2000s. TVs were heavy AF, and it fell on top of her. She was laying there in snow angel position and my mom freaked out. When we got the TV off her, she got up and asked for ice, not to soothe pain but to eat. My little sister was and still is a champ. Kids are made of rubber. I got hit by a car while riding my bicycle, flew through the air, bounced off his windshield breaking his windshield, my helmet and 2 vertebrae, then thrown to the ground where my kneecap shattered and bone was sticking out of the skin, and as I lay there in shock, unaware of how badly I was injured, I thought I might be able to get back on my bike and ride home. Shock is a hell of a drug. I was listening to a podcast today and heard about a guy who had been in a motorcycle accident and as his helmet was bouncing all along the asphalt, he was composing a little song to the rhythm of his helmet bouncing. Turns out there's a scientific reason behind these unique experiences. Under normal conditions, your brain effectively discards large amounts of sensory information because it's not useful. When you're in danger, particularly something extreme like an accident, less of this information is thrown away and you start forming short-term memories at a drastically increased rate. This helps you become more acutely aware of your surroundings and better able to protect yourself, because you're processing more of the input given to you by your senses. Time is relative. If you think faster then everything seems to be slower. Just as if you live longer, long period of time seems to be shorter. An interesting stuff. Back in my baseball days, when I was pitching, I completely lost a pitch, and it beamed a guy in the jaw. He throws his bat down, glares at me with the glariest of glares ever glared, spits out blood, then calmly runs to first base as though nothing happened. It was terrifyingly badass, still better than spitting out blood after getting to third base. Dear God. I broke my neck on a huge Shura-break wave and didn't want to leave the beach, so I continued swimming and playing volleyball until my friends noticed my neck was swelling up bigger than my head. Holy sh! Lucky you didn't paralyze yourself. Super lucky. I shattered and fractured 3 vertebrae and now have metal plates spanning across 5. Feel great though 20 years later. That's terrifying. I broke my C5-6 playing rugby when I was 18. First question I asked the doc after they reset the vertebrae, pre-surgery, was when I could be back playing again. He was deadpan. Is it your sole means of income? Full-time college student making about $112 a week had to admit it was not a paying job on my club team. He basically told me if I played again my insurance wouldn't cover another rugby injury. I was mountain biking and fell off. I fell down part of the mountain and into a road where I almost got hit by a car. I got up quickly, thanked the driver for not killing me and then got back on the bike. I knew the road would meet up with the trail I was on so I could meet up with my group who hasn't seen me fall. When I got to them, one of them looked at me and was like, "What happened?" I got off the bike, walked over whilst we waited for the others to catch up and just said I fell off. He then looked down at me and was like, "What the hell happened?" I'm like, "It's nothing. A few cuts and scratches on my hands and arms. My leg was bleeding from earlier and that was it." Then I looked down and realized I had scratched off half the skin on my leg from falling on the road. Basically a bad case of road burn. From all the adrenaline I hadn't even felt it. They called someone to come and get me from the mountains. I wasn't allowed to continue, and one of the other riders saw my leg and decided they wanted to stop too. I just went to a pharmacy, grabbed some wipes and bandages, then we got a drink whilst we waited for everyone else to finish. Skin is for the weak. Puncture wound? You mean new pocket? Adrenaline. Hell of a drug. I have a now little over a year old chocolate lab who loves water and swimming. Last April we were walking on a fairly popular biking walking trail near the river. This trail has a bunch of offshoot trails that go off into the woods and we were meandering down one and could hear the river. So my dog runs off ahead of me and I hear this sploosh. The area was way overgrown and I couldn't see the river from the trail. So I hustled down to the water and it is ridiculously swift where she went in. And sure enough she's already good 100 feet down river with a panicked look trying to swim back toward me. I dump everything out of my pockets and jump into the river. Catch up to her about 150-200 feet from where I went in. I grabbed her and went to toss her on the bank. Slipped and went under. Regained my footing. Tried again and was successful. I then pull myself up out of the water. Mind you, This bank was a 8 feet tall blackberry hedge that I ended up having to crawl slither through for a good 50 feet. We finally clear the hedge and I make my way through the woods back to the trail and collect my belongings. I then have to walk about a mile back to my car. On my way I kept getting really odd looks from joggers, bicyclists, and I figured I just looked like some wet hobo. Get back to my car, sit down and see my face in the rear view mirror. Half my face is covered in blood. I then decide to inspect other parts of me and I have cuts all over my arms, hands, and am just coated with blood. About halfway home the adrenaline wore off. Then it started to hurt. Turns out I even sprained my thumb tossing the dog. Didn't know until the adrenaline was gone. Also, to this day I have no recollection of how cold the river was, and I know rivers in Oregon during April are far from warm.